Hey guys, it's your host Davion. Welcome to another episode of Conscious Television. You guys already know what we're here to talk about. Before we get into this discussion, make sure that you comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell and hit all when you do so that you can keep up with all of my latest uploads. You guys can also donate to the show at my Cash App, which is $Consciouztv, and or PayPal me at paypal.me/ConsciouzTV. You can also email me at consciouztv@gmail.com, and you can also subscribe to the Patreon at www.patreon.com/ConsciouzTV. All information will be in the description box below. Let's get into this discussion. So first thing first, I want to tell all you guys, thank you for all of the happy birthday wishes. I had a very interesting birthday. I had an amazing birthday. You guys sent me so many emails, and you guys wrote under videos and community posts and everything else. And some of you guys even sent me some birthday money. I'm definitely going to shout you out here in a few. So I just want to say thank you. I want to shout out Sincerely, Your Sweet Place. Thank you so much, baby, for your gift to me for the B-Day. I love you and God bless you. I also want to thank Devon. Thank you so much for your birthday coin. God bless you, and I love you so much. And I also want to shout out somebody who has been really amazing to me ever since she's come into contact with me on YouTube. That would be Outspoken One. She also mods for my YouTube channel. I absolutely love this woman. She's been consistent in her energy. She's been consistent in her love. And you know, there's a lot of controversy right now going on in the YouTube streets, as there always is. But let me tell you something. I don't base the way that I feel about anybody based upon their experience of that person. All of my mods, I am proud to have as my mods. I openly am motherfuckers friends. I don't do secret associations or anything. I fuck with Outspoken One. She fucks with me. And until she double crosses me and has an issue with me, I only have wonderful things to say about her because she's been wonderful to me. I also want to keep in mind for all of you guys out there who call yourselves trying to warn people against being friends with people or associating with people, just like y'all are warning people about Outspoken and so forth, there are just as many people who warn us about all of you who be warning all of us about all of these people. So just like everybody else, I will get to know you for myself. So I want to thank you, Outspoken One. Thank you for being so supportive. Thank you for being consistent. And God just bless you. Love you. Now I want to get into a pretty heavy topic, and that is obviously suicide and depression. As you guys already know, Tai Couture of YouTube committed suicide about a week or two ago. It pretty much sent shockwaves all throughout social media. Tai Couture had a following of 30,000 on YouTube. His brand consisted of reviewing Chasing Reality Atlanta, Chasing Reality Dallas, doing interviews and reviews for Housewives, etc. He was married to a guy named Corey. Then he started dating a guy named Michael Hurd. And he had a successful salon, and he had relocated from one state to Atlanta, I believe, and he had his whole life ahead of him. I didn't know Tai Couture personally, but we shared mutual friends and associates. So I pretty much knew him the way that the average person did, which was occasionally I saw some of his work and content on social media, especially when Chasing Reality Atlanta happened and all of the controversy regarding the reunion and all of that. When the news broke that he had taken his life, I literally felt all of my chakras deactivate. Like literally, when I got up that morning, I turned on my social medias, and I think it was Facebook, matter of fact, and there was a article that was shared by someone who I'm friends with on YouTube stating that Tai Couture had committed suicide, that his family or someone close to the family had pretty much taken to social media to inform everyone that Tai Couture was no longer with us. And it was the most chilling feeling I have felt in a very, very long time. As an empath, I am very triggered by distress. I am very triggered by other people's fear, anxiety, etc. Anybody who is empathic and anybody who also has dealt with depression, and most empaths have suffered deeply and chronically from anxiety and depression as well, because we are so wide open like a sponge and we receive everything in extremes, whether it be positive stimulation and whether it be negative stimulation. So when we are happy, we're like overwhelmingly happy, like almost high on joy. And when we have to deal with contrasting emotions, especially when you are a unconscious empath, the depression and the darkness that evades you can be devastating and difficult to deal with because it's so extreme. It hurt me deeply. He was a human being who reasonably had his entire life ahead of him, and his life was cut short due to dealing with depression, which we found out through close friends and relatives was something that he had practically dealt with his whole entire life. One of the things that I find to be really important to highlight about Tai's suicide and why it's so noteworthy of a conversation, and it can act as a catalyst for a necessary conversation regarding suicide ideation amongst Black people, and definitely amongst Black LGBT individuals, is that Tai Couture aesthetically did not look like somebody who was struggling. Here it is, you had an attractive guy in shape and, you know, has an established platform and, you know, looks to be reasonably financially stable, and yet was so unhappy and disconnected that it led to a hopelessness that resulted in him taking his own life in order to relieve himself of that hopelessness. Suicide is an extremely terrifying state to try to imagine what it must actually be like to commit suicide. Being suicidal is a different experience than actually getting to the point where you actually attempt to take your own life. Even in the one who is contemplating suicide and is harassed by suicidal thoughts, there is some mustard seed and glimmer of hope amidst the suffering and anguish. But if you actually get to a point where you actually are attempting to take your life, it means that you have no concept of hope. Hope is completely and utterly intangible. Losing all of your hope, that's a very deep thing. Now, we didn't get any confirmation in terms of what Tai Couture's last few days were like, what was on his mind leading up to his suicide. There's been a lot of speculation in terms of whether his past relationships had any impact and if past lovers, and what I want to say to that specifically about blaming other people for other people's suicide, because whenever we lose people to death, immediately we want to blame something in order to soothe ourselves and to cope with the grief of the loss, because it's so extreme. Death isn't extreme because it's not a temporary departure, it's a permanent one. This person is permanently gone. They haven't gone into the military, they haven't gone on vacation, they're gone, and they're gone for the rest of your earthly life. And so sometimes it feels easier to blame somebody, blame the church, blame the ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend, blame the family, just find someone to fucking blame, because we do that to make ourselves feel better. But the truth is, nobody is responsible for a person taking their own life. Considering that some of Mr. Couture's closest friends stating that the idea of a healthy romance was something that was a driving force behind his life, and that need and that desire and that void in his heart motivating feelings of depression, That's very common, especially amongst LGBT individuals. Most LGBT's love language is romance. Nearly everyone in the LGBT community is after a deep love, genuine intimacy with another person, has a deep desire to experience that passion, that unconditional love, that total acceptance from someone, because because nearly all LGBT people have been raised within communities and certainly within a country that has been very unaccepting of their humanity, has been very unaccepting of their persons. And so all of that void gets projected into the need to belong to someone romantically. Most LGBT people deal with a very deep sense of loneliness, even if they are socialites, even if they have lots of friends, even if they have fame and are popular, because LGBT people have been deeply disconnected from nearly every system. LGBT people were shunned from being able to perceive God as something that made them with purpose, just how they are, sexuality in tow, gender identity in tow. So most LGBT people have felt deeply disconnected from God, even if they continue to participate in the church, because it was one of the only areas that offered any sense of afterlife that could be slightly promising and better than this earthly existence, but nonetheless still suffered from a distance between us and God, us and the divine, because you went to church your whole life believing that you were eternally damned, and that God didn't like you, and God didn't make you like that, and God wasn't going to bless you the way that you were, and that if you didn't find a way to correct what you were, that you were going to bust hell wide open, and that God would never shun his love and his compassion and his abundance upon you. And so our psyche was broken, and this spiritual void existed as a result. Also not being able to be fully accepted by your family, by your mother, because all of them shared the same sentiments of the church, because they were products of the same teachings. And so this loneliness is very common, this need to belong to somebody, to at least one person, to mean absolutely something to one person. You can doubt whether your friends love you because it's a platonic love. You can doubt whether your relatives love you because it's a platonic love. But the one type of love that is very visceral to nearly all human beings is romantic love, because it's such a jarring, deeply intimate, naked experience of one's own self, reflected in the high vibrating love of another person who's holding you as their object of affection. And that's why we all, as people, whether gay, straight, black, white, men or women, we desire love. We desire to belong. We desire to be accepted. And that feeds us. So Tai Couture feeling like he failed at that, or maybe coming to the point where he just felt like he wasn't going to be able to achieve that, is exactly why his suicide is not his ex-husband's fault, and it's not any ex-boyfriend's fault. What contributed to his suicide would have been him idolizing romantic love. This is what's terribly destructive and damaging about idolizing anything and idolizing any idea. Whether that be this idea that money can save you, whether that be this idea that fame can save you, whether it be this idea that attractiveness and beauty can save you. Because here it is, we had somebody who was picture perfect, somebody who had all these things listed, and yet it wasn't enough. And Christ 2,500 years ago, in the man known as Yahshua, told us then that we cannot live off bread alone. That what we're feeding our soul has to be something immaterial and that transcends the world of form. Because all of this is temporary. The home, the cars, the clothes, the clout, the beauty, the jewelry. And if this is what we are basing our esteem and the substance of our life off of, no wonder we're always in a state of thirstiness. If these are the earthly things that we believe has the power and the potential to set us free, if only my family was loving, if only somebody would marry me and love me for who I am, if only I had better friends. Not that the obtainment of these things are not enjoyable, of course. Who wouldn't enjoy a wonderful, loving family? Who wouldn't enjoy a peaceful society? Who wouldn't enjoy a functional, healthy romantic relationship? Who wouldn't enjoy financial stability and riches and luxury? But when you identify with those things, and because things are temporal, things will fail you every single time. And that joy that you only able to experience when you got money in your pocket is gone again when you're broke. And that joy that you only allow yourself to experience when you're in a romantic relationship, when it's over, it's gone again. You're empty again and again and again and again and again. And this is why we have to be deeply, deeply connected and aware of our spiritual nature, because it is the ultimate truth about existence. It is not all of this and all of that out there. This will go. And the thing in you that thinks, the space in you that allows thought and that allows for you to be aware, is the thing that will still be. We can't idolize anything. We can't idolize our parents. We're going to lose them. We can't idolize our children. Some of us are going to outlive our children. We can't idolize our marriages, our romantic partners, because we're going to lose them one way or the other. You're either going to lose things by choice or by force. And there comes a point in time in our maturity, spiritually, where we have to sit in that. And we have to truly conceptualize that. And we have to swallow that I'm going to lose everything that I know, that I desire, everything that I am. And that has to be okay. Because there is no other way. There is no other way. Because not accepting that everything goes is what is causing us to erroneously hold on to our identities to the point that it causes us misery when life keeps telling us none of it is of substance and will go. And no matter how much we try to do for ourselves, we can make all the money in the world, we can fuck all the people in the world, we can get into the relationship we need to, no matter what. None of it will cure this fear and this in denialness and this resistance we have to letting go. Letting go is what will set each of us free. And speaking to LGBT people in particularly, this isn't a hallmark message that you're probably expecting, but the truth is, between us entering into a new age, the age of Aquarius, and all of the powerful effects that's going to have on our humanity and on our earth, people in this particular age, the age of Aquarius, are not focused upon relationship, meaningful interaction, and connectedness. It's all about money. It's all about form. It's all about self. And this is impacting not only the dating experience and dynamic of queer people across the spectrum, lesbians, gays, trans individuals, but it's also deeply impacting the heterosexual community at this point as well, because 70% of marriages in this country end in divorce. That's more than half of marriages. And no amount of ignoring the possibility that you may end up alone, and that you may die alone, and that you may die without the things you thought you needed in order to feel complete, is going to keep that reality from not manifesting in your life. No amount of ignoring it and not speaking to yourself about it, not consulting with God about your deepest fears and about who you should be in this life, even if you could not obtain the things that you thought your heart wanted. To not be preparing for a life that doesn't look like the one that you planned for, that doesn't look like the one that you hoped for. Those are all things that we all need to be dealing with. Is preparing for the possibility that my life just might not end up the way that I want it to. And what is going to be the source of my peace and my joy and my contentment and my satisfaction if I never achieve being in these situations, circumstances, and scenarios that will make my ego feel good about my life here? Because this is secretly what's killing us. Because the more we deny the reality that we're going to have to let go, the more that we're going to cling tight to our flesh, to our mortal identity, to our possessions, to the values and the appraises of human beings, of the society and the culture that we're in. The only true thing is God. And if the scary truth about you is that you know that right now, honestly speaking, that God is just not enough for you. All of us like to think we have this radical love for God until God is all we might end up having. And it won't be the amazing body. It won't be all the money in the world. And it won't be the house and the husband and the amazing wife and the good credit and the amazing retirement and the youthfulness of our appearance. But just God. If you think about, for real, could God be enough for you if God was literally all you knew you were going to end up with? Could you be happy? And if the honest answer is no, that is your work. That is your work. Because God is all that any of us have. Even when we have all this other stuff, all that we all in actuality really have is God. And every time something leaves us, we fall apart. And we're falling apart because we never had it together. We never had it together. So when the stuff falls apart, we fall apart. When the things fall apart, we fall apart. And the only way to avoid that is through the revelation that Buddha discovered on his 4th day of fasting and meditating, which was to give up our ideas, to give up our expectations, because it is desire that is the root of human suffering. Your desire for anything creates equally the potential to suffer. Because to desire a thing is to establish a wantingness and a value of a thing. But that by default also creates the plummet and the descension down into the lowest parts of yourself. Remove desire and to just simply be. You can live a life, desire marriage, go out here and date, desire wealth, go out here and build businesses, while also accepting that all you have is whatever God is. That's all that's going to be left at the end of you, at the end of the age, at the end of the night, when you close your eyes and you go into oblivion. That whatever God is all that you and each and every last single one of us have. And to never forget that. to be acutely aware that while I may have things to play with, things to do, and a productive life that I'm living, that all that's actually real. That the only ultimate reality is God. That is it. And that if even in the midst of all of the goals and accolades and achievements and all the love from people, that I'm constantly also positioning myself to have it all removed and still experience satisfaction and peace. Because someday it's either going to be removed from me or I'm going to be removed from it. So the inevitable has to be made peace with, and that's the end of your conscious existence, the end of your egoic identity. And in the Western world, as Americans, we don't live in a deeply spiritual country. We don't live in a country that is balanced between secularism and spirituality. There's secularism and religion, but as we can see, religion is practically useless at this point. But that there's no balance of spiritual narrative. Everything is secular, is scientific, and there's no narrative and conversation around what it means to be energy encapsulated inside of a flesh vehicle. There's no acknowledgement of the immortal and eternal nature of one's own soul and spirit. And there's no conscious spiritual practices being reinforced and encouraged within our society. What we are encouraged to do is buy. We're always being sold shit. We're always being pitched shit. There's always trends being set for us to consume and be distracted by. There's always bills to be paid. There's always somebody's expectations to attempt to live up to, whether it's mommy and daddy's, or whether it's the boss man's, or the black community, or the white community, or the men's community, or the gays community. The list goes on. Everything but mindful practices that remind us that we're more than our desires. That we aren't even our desires. We aren't even our thoughts. And living in that type of dense material society is going to have profound physical and spiritual ramifications, as we're seeing now within our culture. All these mass shootings. We just had a mass shooting yesterday. Walmart, 3 killed. Somebody opened fire in Oklahoma. School shooting in LA just 2 days before that. We've had 200, 300 something school shootings within the past 2 years. All of this murder, all of this violence is indicative of a change that's happening with or without our consent. Consciousness is shifting. And there are parts of our humanity that aren't coping well with that shift. And that violence and uproar is also the side effect of only operating out of 1/3 of your persons. And in this culture, we're operating only out of our body. And we neglected the soul and the spirit. So we're only acknowledging, we're only feeding, we're only consciously supporting 1/3 of our makeup. That's almost like having a vehicle and only nurturing the engine while completely negating the transmission, the alternator, and the gas pump, which all work synchronistically together. As it relates to suicide, I'm very proud of all of the people that got the conversation started immediately after Tay's suicide about mental health and emotional health and well-being and wellness. And especially as Black people, we have a very warped view of mental health due to our generational codependency upon religion, which has caused us to demonize and shun seeking medical attention and seeking psychological evaluation. Seek help. Seek help. Because if you ignore your mental and emotional health, it will ignore you as well. It will kill you. Seek help beyond all else. What I want to say to seeking help is, as expensive as therapy, quality therapy is, unfortunately it does require kind of bouncing around and finding the right fit, because not every counselor and not every therapist is necessarily the right fit for you, any more than just any old church would be the right fit for you. If you get with a counselor and a therapist and you just don't personally feel connected to the way that that therapist and counselor conveys their exercises and their insight and wisdom, then don't necessarily get discouraged. Just continue to be open to get some referrals even until it clicks for you, because it is important to find the right guidance and the right advisor, whether that's spiritual or secular therapy. Also, therapy is not your salvation in and of itself. You have to actually do the work as well. So sometimes it could be an issue of people are in counseling, but they're not with the right counselor, or people are with the right counselor but aren't really doing the work. So the balance of the right counselor and you surrendering over to the therapy itself is what makes therapy effective. Let Tai Couture's suicide be a wake-up call. Let us do a lot better at checking in with one another. Let us do a lot better at being more forthcoming about our emotional state. We've got to support each other in being honest about our pain and our sadness, so that people aren't walking around looking well and dead from within and dead from the neck down, as the Yama would say. Because people can be here today and gone tomorrow. And I just want to encourage all queer people, particularly black men, who suicide rates have doubled for, and black LGBT youth who suicide has doubled for as well, that we have to work harder at our mental health, just because the marginalization of our communities being black, the disparity there, and then being queer, and all of the complexity of that issue. So being black in America and being black and gay in America, none of us can afford to not be doing everything we can to support joy and to support our mental and emotional health and wellness and awareness. We don't live in a world that supports us. If you are an empath, you don't live in a society in America that identifies you and that has unique spaces for you. So for all of us empaths, blacks, and black queer people, we're going to have to personally create what we need in our life. We're going to personally have to create our havens and our sanctuaries and our sacred spaces in our lives. We're going to have to customize that for ourselves, because the world does not, in this current time, supply that. So that might annoy some people that we have to work twice as hard right now, but not working twice as hard is going to continue to cause us to check up out of this motherfucker quicker than a Popeye's chicken sandwich, if we don't. I just want to thank God for allowing us all who have been able to experience the soul, whether that be in the form of his subscribers, or in the form of his relatives, or in the form of his friends, etc., to just thank God for allowing us to walk amongst this particular soul. And I just pray and send light and love to all of Tai Couture's friends and family, and to the fans as well. And just let this be a deep encouragement to take care of yourself and to seek the necessary help spiritually and psychologically that you may need, because that is what Tai would want. That is what he would want us to take away from his suicide, is do everything to not be where he was and to not get to the point that he was at. And there is no shame about wanting to die. There's no shame. If that's the way that you're feeling, reach out to a crisis hotline, which the number will be left in the link below. You can always email me if you're feeling checked out, if you're feeling that low and that disconnected. You don't have to be ashamed to be unhappy. That's a part of going through this crazy experience called life, is mixed emotions, the spikes up and down, the fluctuations. And it's just a matter of us all supporting each other in our humanity and in the reality of life. And these are feelings that we all feel. I don't care how great some of us look and how much some of us have. Everyone has felt afflicted and dealt with bouts of depression, if not just full out suffered from anxiety and depression and sadness. So you're not alone. You never have been alone. And just don't think that don't think that the person who has more than you does not feel as fucked up on the inside as you. They just don't look like it per se. But depression isn't a look, and suicide isn't a look. And that is what is so dramatically reminded of us due to Tai's suicide. Is that hopelessness has no look. Hopelessness can have a six-pack. Hopelessness can have a successful online following. Hopelessness can have business, can have money. Hopelessness can have all of that. Yeah. So, light, love, and peace. I don't know if this video was helpful, even if it made sense, because I was supposed to go in chronological order. I took a bunch of notes, but when talking about suicide and how it impacts each ethnic group in this country and each social group in this country is a really big conversation. There's a lot to say, and if we need to come back and speak more about anxiety and blackness, suicide and blackness, suicide and black queerness, then we can do just that. But in the meantime, you guys comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Definitely share this video and information to some online support groups and to the crisis hotline will be, if not at the bottom of the screen, definitely in the description box below. And you guys just take care of yourself, and just take care of yourself. Take care of yourself.